Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. Namaste. Welcome. So we welcome all the in-person people and the Facebook people and the Zoom people. So online and in person. And we are opening the Cosmic Center Spiritual Light up to in-person services. So you are more than welcome to come. We are observing protocol, and I think you will find it real refreshing to be with your friends and family in the light again. So it is now 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, and we are opening this beautiful Saturday Sabbath service up for everyone. Hello, my name is Reverend Robin Richardson, and I have a beautiful service for you, introducing you to a beautiful book that I stumbled upon that really put everything together for me. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on it and explain what the Colburn Bible is. It's a very, very ancient text that was on Egyptian scrolls, and it was penned in Egyptian, and the Phoenicians spread it everywhere. So let me kind of tell you just a little bit of what the Colburn Bible is. Thank you for coming. All right, so there's been many books. We have the Bible that we speak of. We have the other ancient books, the Illuma Elish that I spoke about last month. But this book is a beautiful book, and I'm going to show it to you. You can see I've read it from front to back, but it is the Colburn Bible. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. If you want to buy it, you can buy it. It is available to you, but make sure that it says the 21st Century Master Edition. So it is the Colburn Bible. So let me just give you a little bit of the background of it and why I feel it's really important now during these days, because we have our Bible that is a creation text that's holy, but there's other ancient texts. And you'll see here that the papyrus and the text here, we believe that Jesus got hold of and he was reading, as this is ancient days, written before the flood by revealers of light. And you'll see where the revealers of light then kept this knowledge, introduced it to the Egyptians. They had initiations in the pyramids, kept this sacred knowledge very holy, and passed it for us, the children of the unborn days, because we would need it. And I truly believe this is the time that they're speaking of, because they said, and I'll read you the verses, that they will write these texts, keep them, so that we, the children of the unborn days, will have need of them to relight the lamps of truth. And this knowledge comes to us from Ancient of Days. So it's really beautiful and revealing that they could foresee that they wanted to keep this ancient knowledge alive for us during these times of chaos and tumultuous times. And we will need this to light our own lamp of truth. So let me tell you just a little bit about the Colburn Bible and also the Cole book that was also, you'll see they were merged together, two ancient texts. So they were on ancient scrolls, but it is an ancient, they called it the Great Book, and it is an ancient secular text that was penned in hieratic by the Egyptians in 1500 BCE. It was lucky to survive when the Glastonbury Abbey was set ablaze that housed it in 1184 CE, because King Henry II ordered an attack on the abbey, claiming that the Celtic priests there were mystical heretics. So here, these were housed, and the Celtic priests were copying them and they were studying them. But you'll have, as with many religions, you'll have people that claim to have power and control try to snuff other religions out that they feel might endanger their view, their worldview at the time. These priests went into hiding after the abbey was set ablaze, and they transcribed the remaining text onto bronze sheets, and they did this so it could never be burned. I thought that was brilliant, right? And stored them in copper-clad wooden boxes to safeguard it. And that is so that even if things were set ablaze, you would always have this sacred information. This bronze book was then merged with a Celtic wisdom text called the Cole Book to become the Colburn Bible. So in this Bible, you will have both the Egyptian stories of creation from the very beginning, and they speak of two creations, that we were on earth from the very beginning when earth was first formed and there were mountains raised, that there was a time of fire and earth had an upheaval then. And then it also speaks of the second, and that's the flood. And that's the one I'm going to be speaking about too. But interesting, one of the topics I spoke with was on the tree of life. This Bible will speak of the tree of life. And so you'll see again that is reiterating and confirming all the ancient texts about the floods. This will speak of a flood, but interesting, it's going to be a woman that grants the knowledge that is the pure one. And they even have an ark. Very, very interesting to save the ancient knowledge. So in this the Colburn Bible, it will speak of the revealers of light. And I love that knowledge. It's just a beautiful way to coin that way that we are called upon to be also as revealers of light. And they came into Egypt after their lands were destroyed. And this was by the flood. And I'll be reading you these verses in text from the Colburn itself. And they brought great wisdom from an age that they remembered, when men walked in light upon the earth and possessed the secret of the ages. And they knew the clear light of truth. So we will be discussing how this knowledge then was brought in, taught, and then disseminated through the mystery schools. Because you have religions that come and go, that burn texts and say this one is the right one and this is the wrong one and I don't like that one. So the mystery schools kept this ancient lore and knowledge alive. And now I'm going to show you why we believe that Jesus, because remember he was in Egypt, and there's even in the lost books of the Bible where he went through Egypt and India, and he was taught in Tibet. And I have given other sermons about the lost years of Jesus where we have confirmation of where he was. So that was hidden through the mystery schools. So, but here I'm going to read you just a little bit why this is important, even in the Celtic part of this. And I have brought this up because this is a first person account of someone describing Jesus. And so this was when he went to Britain, which is very interesting. So I'm just going to read you this a little bit and then we'll get into the Colburn Bible itself. So here, again, to reiterate, the Celtic texts, remember we have the Egyptian text, the first 6 books. This is the second 6. The Celtic texts of the Cole Book, those are the last chapters in this Bible, were originally penned in ancient Celtic. So the first part is Egyptian, the second part is Celtic, but it's ancient Celtic. Work began on the earliest parts of the Cole Book in approximately 20 CE and finished in approximately 500 CE. So can you see how old these ancient texts are? And a lot of this knowledge predates our own Bible. It was inspired by the scope of the Egyptian text that we just spoke of in the Great Book, about the creation, about the floods, about the fire. The Celts wrote their own historical and philosophical anthology in a similar manner, but in their own language. Viewed as a religious work by many, the Celtic texts offer a timeless insight into Druid folklore, mysticism, and philosophy. And it's really interesting when you really start to go after the Druid knowledge, a lot of it wasn't written. And so you have a dearth of knowledge about where the Druids got their source of information. And this is why I was so excited to find this Bible, because that is one of the sources where the ancient Druids had their knowledge and were inspired. So according to some historians, the Cole book was also inspired in part by a visit by Jesus Christ to Britain. At the time, Jesus was either in his late teens or middle 20s and traveled via a high-speed Phoenician trading ship to Britain with his great uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, who undertook the journey to inspect a tin mine he owned. These historians further maintain that Jesus studied the Egyptian text in Britain. This is because the Celtic texts penned following his possible visit contain a never before published biography of Jesus. And I've actually, in prior sermons, went ahead and read that because it's wonderful, describes him and Mary and everything else. Given the detailed and highly revealing nature of this biography of Jesus, the case can be made that the biographer personally met Jesus, because it's in the first person, or interviewed someone who had. And this is really important because in our own Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those are written hundreds of years after Jesus was on earth. So this is a more first person upfront account of Jesus himself. Additional corroboration comes from reliable historical accounts that include Joseph of Arimathea founded the Glastonbury Abbey in or about 36 CE, and that it eventually became the repository for these texts during the first millennium. So there you have something that is founded during that time of Joseph of Arimathea. He knew Jesus. And if he founds the Glastonbury Abbey, you have these ancient texts there that they're studying, and then you can see where it was cast into flames because of their beliefs. So stored together in the Glastonbury Abbey, under the watchful eyes of Celtic priests, the texts remained safe and were actively studied until the 12th century, when the abbey was attacked and set ablaze by the minions of King Henry II. After the attack, the priests fled with what remained of these ancient texts and the works to a secret location in Scotland. And that's where you start to see, that Scotland is a repository, Britain, and when you go back into the wonders of the mysteries, you'll start to see this trail, because there's even legends of Mary Magdalene that was pregnant with Joseph of Arimathea coming in across the ocean to Britain. You see, that's where some of those other scrolls have been found that speak of that. But then you also see in Scotland that the Templars were there, that was housed with a lot of this knowledge. So that's where the Egyptian texts were transcribed onto the bronze sheets, which I spoke of. At that time, the two books were still not joined, and the language of both remained as is. Phoenician, translated from the Egyptian Heretic, and the ancient Celtic, respectively. So they had two different languages. In the 18th century, the two books were combined and translated to Old English to form the first identifiable edition of the Colburn Bible. In the 20th century, the manuscripts were transferred to London and updated to Continental English. So that's when you now get, and that's only one translation, Celtic to English, you see, and from the Egyptian to English. So now we're not going through vast different translations from the source. So this is where it is just a beautiful book. Let's start about discovering it. So we have the legend of Noah in our own Bible. They speak in this Bible of creation, and I told you there were two different times that earth was destroyed. And what we're getting here is that they're speaking of and saying, go find this wonderful woman, Eloma. She is pure, because there's going to be a time. They're predicting there's going to be a flood. And so you see that she is the pure one. And I'm going to start to show you where she's coming from. Then Eloma went out among the people and taught them about their Creator in this manner. I bring you the soul whispered words of God, the eternal tower of strength, the fathomless ocean of compassion. He has hung the earth in the void, surrounding it with nothingness, yet by his power, it remains in its appointed place. He veils his glory behind the shield of illusion, lest it overpower the spirits of men. He is obscured by the dark cloud of mortal ignorance. He is the inspirational spirit ever entering the hearts of man, striving to arouse them to reach outwards toward greatness and achievement. So she goes forth after the flood, and she is a repository of this ancient knowledge. And I will speak to you even of the ark. But this is who she is, and she's telling humanity that she knows and experiences God, and that we are here struggling, and everything is not in vain, and that it is a school ground of instruction. This is talking to us, and it will tell you about a beautiful portal of communication. But this is where this high level of individuals that walked upon the earth, which you'll see where they were called the children of God. And they speak of two races upon the earth. And that's for another discussion, but I will kind of introduce it here. In this Colburn Bible, they speak of there being two races upon the earth, the children of God and the children of men. And that they were instructed not to intermarry, but the higher, more spiritual race who had twin sight, who could see the veils and the mists and all the dimensions from earth to the heavens, were instructed to go into the areas of earth and teach this other lesser race. And there's a whole interesting story about two apples that were drenched in herbs that caused the whole intermarrying between the races and the fall. It's a very interesting spin, which predates our Bible on the apple. So that's a whole nother story. And I will talk about that at another time, but it's very interesting that you'll see the apple, you'll see the ark, and all this is predating our own Bible. But think about the beauty of this, that you have a race, supposedly of these enlightened individuals that have pure blood, that have these gifts. They can see light, they can see the dimensions, and they are teaching everyone on earth. But they know that there's going to be a time, there's going to be a flood, and they want to keep everything and inscribe it, because there will be a time when we will need this knowledge. And when I read this, it brought tears to my eyes, because this is from an Ancient of Days speaking to us, that they thought of us in this time. Behold, was this not written in the days of our fathers' fathers, and of their fathers before them, and given unto us that we should pass it on to you, the children of days yet unborn? That if the ability of the scribe remains with you, it could be read in your generation. Read, O children of the unborn years, and that is us today. and absorb the wisdom of the past, which is your heritage, the enlightening words from a past which is to you in days so far away and yet in truth so near. We are taught that we live forever, and this is true, but it is equally true that no moment of life must be wasted. For each hour and day on earth is a shaping for the future. We are the inheritors of a portion of time. We can dissipate it on futile things or utilize it to our everlasting benefit. Isn't that beautiful? In the days of our fathers, before barren teachings clogged the thoughts of men, and vain formal ritual built a wall which obscured understanding, men walked in the light of truth. Then they knew there was one God alone, but because they allowed their higher abilities to fall to disuse, they saw less clearly because he appeared in different aspects and they thought he was many. Now in our days, God has many varied forms in the eyes of men, and each declares he alone knows the true name and likeness of God. Here all men fall into error, though all have spoken truly according to their own understanding. But truth can never bow to the limited understanding of man. The comprehension of man must expand to grasp it. And so that is our quest here on earth, is to expand our divine spark of awareness, to grasp the higher teachings that here have been laid out for us and that prior generations had. And I thought that was so beautiful. And they will speak here that they're predicting that these floodgates will open upon the earth and the flood waters will rise to cover the land. And great rainstorms will be lashed down. The winds can no longer discover their destination, so that they know, and they are telling us that the floodwaters came. They're going to tell us where they fled to. The people left the plain of Shanera and fled up into a great mountain rising above the flatlands below, and here near the summit they camped, feeling themselves secure. But they weren't, and the floodgates opened, and only those that had the boat and the ark and had the prior prophecy and had acted upon it remained. So now what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the bloodline and the portal of communication. So here, after the floodwaters were there and swept through the oceans and the earth, those that knew of this prophecy survived that kept the higher knowledge. And this is what I was tracking for many years. Where did the ancient source, the ancient knowledge come from? Where did the mystery schools knowledge? Where was the original source? And also, if Jesus read it, I want to know it. Where were all his teachings? Where was he taught? The source, the fountain of knowledge. And so here they'll even tell you that they came and introduced this. We took refuge with the sons of Utano, whose fathers had been in the land many generations, for they had come out of Egypt into the days of the Pharaoh Napharene. There on the borderland we dwelt in the caves, Kathim. We were without books or possessions because they lost them all in the floods. But we were diligent and labored to make the land fruitful. We knew ourselves as the brothers in light, but others called us the children of light, even as we are called to this day. So here's the very beginning of where the mystery schools began and where the source of knowledge came from. They come into this good and fertile land that is a wide land of flowing streams, where wheat and barley increased 100-fold. And here, there, they come and spread this knowledge. We must build for these people a court of peace, the 4 pillars, wherefore shall be love, consideration, justice, and truth. Very beautiful, and they spread this knowledge. This is where they're going to define the knowledge that they speak of, the secret of all the ages. What cause have we for sorrow? We are in a bountiful land. We have hope for the future and an unshakable faith. Better by far than all else, we have with us the key to the ancient portal of communication. Very interesting in that they would phrase it like that. The key to the ancient portal of communication. Our memories, because everything was destroyed from paper, our memories must replace the books and decrees of former times. And when I read that, that's when you realize they have the knowledge of what was on earth before the flood, before the devastation, even retain knowledge of the first time earth was destroyed. Let us therefore be thankful for our blessings and diligently preserve the flame from which the lamps of truth will one day be relit. And I offer that this is the day that we have the fount of knowledge, and let us relight the lamps of truth, and that we can hear, understand, and become more knowledgeable from the light that the revealers brought us. This is the beginning of who they are, and they will tell you. They'll speak of the lesser mysteries, and this is what this book will talk about, that there's higher mysteries and lesser mysteries. Now remember, this is written, so when they write it, it'll only be the lesser. The higher teachings will not have been put into written form. The ideals of man were above reproach, but man himself was unworthy of them. We have no need to change ideals, but to attain them. We must change men. The sacred lore of Egypt, enshrining the treasure of the ages, was possessed by only a select few who safeguarded it as nothing else has ever been guarded because of its greatness. Not only this, but even a little knowledge of it could be dangerous in the hands of any who sought to utilize it improperly. So people ask, why is the knowledge and the teachings undercover? And it will even set that out as to why it is, because you can't grant the higher knowledge to people who have devious intentions. And so the mystery schools went through initiation and testing and initiation to make sure that you were worthy and that you could handle the higher teachings, because with the responsibility, after you're given the knowledge comes greater responsibility, and you have to be tried and true, tested for the ultimate sacrifice and the giving of this knowledge to all others. So here, I'd like to read to you here about the lesser mysteries and why these were not given to the common folk. These things must not be entrusted to the common folk. Neither must they be degraded by disclosing them to such as would profane them. They were once reserved for those who were exalted in wisdom and virtue, telling us in those days the peoples upon the earth were exalted in knowledge, but also virtue. In those days of Harumta, the mouth of God on earth, They were hidden from those in high places. So here, again, you're going to start to see that in the pyramids, they would have initiations that would bring people almost to the point of death, and they would be enlightened to be able to take their spirit, their soul, as the Egyptians would say, their ka, their higher self, and go to the higher realms and gather the knowledge from above and bring it back down into their earthly body so that they walked in light. There is a contest that I'm hoping I'll have enough time to get into, where the people that had this knowledge, and I'll read you the verses, were, I guess, came into contact with a lesser organization, and they had their own king who said, our priests are more worthy than yours. And he said, well, let us declare a contest. And they went into a darkened pyramid, and their priests were in there, and there was no light. And I'll read you the passages from this. But then the individuals that had the revealers of light literally went into a darkened pyramid chamber with everyone else present, and they literally lit the entire chamber up with their consciousness and bodies. And that gives you another way to say they were true revealers of light, because they embodied it within their physical form and literally had their auras light up the entire chambers. And this is discussed in here. So here we spoke about why you have to hide this knowledge and only give it to the worthy. But let's also speak of the lesser mysteries and the ritual. They're even giving us the rituals that they performed in the pyramids. And remember, we have Hermes, thrice born. They're not speaking of the thrice born, but they will speak of the twice born. And what I believe is happening, and I'll read you this, a little bit of this. In order to be reborn, you have to die. So think of thrice: emotional, physical, and spiritual. And they'll even show you what they were doing from a spiritual situation and a physical situation. They were bringing the body close to death, but not yet, not quite, and keeping the silver cord connected to where they were gathering the beautiful knowledge and bringing it back in their mortal bodies and consciousness. And that, to me, was the twice. That was to be reborn spiritually and physically, you see. But here, this is one among the lesser mysteries, the ritual of the twice born. It is a ceremony to regain spiritual vigor and to restore spiritual power, whereby a chosen one dies and rises again. It is a grim undertaking fraught with danger. It is not for the spiritually weak or the faint-hearted. Not all survive to walk again upon the friendly face of earth. Only the older men who had completed 3 cycles of 7 years were accepted. They had to be men with wisdom and courage, with the strength and fortitude to survive. Other essentials were absolute purity, that's purity of thought, and complete self-discipline. So that's why you had to go through all the initiations and be taught and prove yourself worthy. The ability for self-sacrifice and a strict sense of duty were demanded. Only men possessing all these qualities could cross the border in consciousness and return. To be deficient in any essential quality meant death. And that's why the instructions were long and arduous, because you would have need of them to navigate the heavens. Now you're starting to have a lot of the people come forth who've had near-death experiences, I including one of those individuals, that I was lucky enough to have the near-death experience when I was a baby. I did and was able to traverse that pathway up to heaven and back, and still am here to speak about it. And I believe he's explaining to you how they were teaching others to do that with their own knowledge and dedication and perseverance. And they'll even speak here, the tree of life has many branches, and that which is initiation bears the best fruit. And it is about this that your brother writes, because you see they'll speak, this is we are brothers. This is the foundation of the original mystery schools, the brothers. Now, what I'm also going to do here is they will even talk about the caverns of initiations, where it was. And they're going to call it the House of Hidden Places. The House of Hidden Places was maintained so that all who had any part in governing the lives of the people, whether as king or priest or official, could prove themselves worthy before becoming encumbered with the office. So what they espoused was that anyone who took office to govern peoples had to be pure, had to be wise, had to undertake all these initiations. So then you knew that when someone, they were fit to rule others because they had proved themselves worthy, which sadly to say may not be what we're doing today with all of our offices. So then you're going to start to see where you have this high knowledge and they're teaching others, but they know that there's going to be long generations of twilight, and they know that a dark age will fall upon us. Later it came about that the hidden places had to be further secured, and only men long established in good could enter them. Those in high places and those with power shirked the austerities and dangers demanded. And shirk means that they didn't want to go through it. They didn't want to prove themselves worthy. And thereby they cut themselves off from the light of truth. So think about this. You have individuals that have proven themselves worthy in thought, word, and deed with tested and true initiations. But now you have these other individuals coming forth that aren't going to do this long and arduous journey. They cut themselves off from the light above that gives them true enlightenment mentally, physically, and spiritually, but also in the light within their body, within their aura. The kings and governors who ruled Egypt during all the many long generations of twilight and darkness were born to the frailties of the flesh. Seen only through their earthly eyes, they lack the clear guidance of revelation and knowledge. The seraph egg remains. It will give up its secrets on the distant day when hatched under the breast of understanding. Then it will open its eyes, unfold, and spread its wings to reveal the light of truth. So they're saying they're taking this beautiful sacred knowledge, putting it into an egg, and it will be hatched in another time of the generations, and to be relit, hopefully during these times that we need it so desperately. Now, I'm going to go a little bit here and talk about the riddle of life. It's absolutely beautiful. When they would go and do these initiations, they told you they would bring a person to the point of death. They would also have all these spiritual initiations even before you would enter into doing some of the higher initiations. And this will give you a little bit more of what they were doing and of the higher dimensions that they're navigating. I have enough time here because I want to go through some of the other things. This teaches you about why the rituals are there, and they're not just rituals. You have to perform at a higher level. The anointed one entered the first cavern of initiation, and was tested there in such manner that no ordinary mortal could endure it. After 3 days, he came out saying to one who stood there, O acceptable suffering, what has been decreed is indeed best. And to see the 3 days, it's just like when Jesus, you can see that same kind of symbolism come up. After passing through the first 2 caverns of initiation, the candidate became the enwrapped one. And in the last small cavern of the Lord of the twice born released his spirit. The enwrapped one was then placed within the womb of rebirth, and there within the tomb of stone he was left 7 days. Here came complete liberation of the spirit. It floated out through the confining stone and went as it willed. No words of men, however learned, can ever describe this experience. So even when you start thinking of Jesus and he was in the tomb, you see you've got a lot of this symbology and the metaphors that are very similar to what Jesus was going through. The spirit of the enwrapped one returned to the body at the behest of the Lord of the twice born. And he who had survived became a twice born one. When led forth into the palace of glorification, his face shines with an inner beauty indescribable. And from that day onward, his conduct and attitudes are changed, and he is at peace with all men and himself. He needs nothing from earthly life and seeks nothing. He accepts and enjoys whatever life offers, for he has learned the answer to the riddle of life and solved the secret of the ages. And so this is where you're getting the revealers of light, caring and how they're even gathering this higher indescribable glory and knowledge and bringing it down and sharing it with us. You're even seeing here that the guy's saying, your brother was one who underwent the initiation of the twice born, and he has drawn the curtain aside a little to reveal only what is permitted. It is little enough, but sufficient for you to understand why, when kings and governors rose to positions of power, they declined the ordeal. It is understandable, for the final ordeal brought earthly life as close to possible to extinction, without complete severance of the spiritual umbilical cord. And they had to have prepared for this journey 20 years before they undertook it. So here, those were the initiations. That's who the revealers of light are. And they will cross this mysterious border, and it remains open ever after and can be recrossed almost at will, granting to those that went through this ordeal the ability to have access to those higher dimensions. And you'll start to even see this. Think about Edgar Cayce. He was able, when he went into his trance state, to be able to take that higher knowledge and heal. He came back with healing prescriptions for the children and then the adults, and then they would even ask him questions about where our souls go. So he would be able to cross that veil, that border, do you see, but he could only do it in a trance state. So they were devoted to the discovery of truth. Because of those who have devoted their lives to the discovery of truth, there is progress in the sphere of the spirit. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has been in vain. The great gates are still closed, but they are no longer bolted. Now they will open at a knock. And that is our duty, to knock. And even in the Bible, it says, knock and the door shall be open. That is the verse that Jesus gives us. The road is better marked and the way more clearly indicated. They who lit the path have departed from earth, but their service has not ended. They serve still in another place. While life on earth moves forward, life in the sphere of the spirit does not stand still. So they're going to call it the earthly brotherhood. And then I would like to read to you this beautiful prayer. And then there's going to be, I'd like to close with a beautiful verse where they're asking to have enlightenment. And it's this beautiful request. And we petition and we ask to knock that we be granted this higher teachings, that we light our own internal lamps of knowledge. So I have just a few more minutes here, but I at least wanted to read. I did promise you that I was going to read exactly from you about that contest, to where these revealers of light were able to take the light and lighten the entire pyramid with light itself. And they do know scientifically that with all the chemistry within our bodies, we're releasing these little light particles. And they know that, and they can capture that now, all of our blood chemistry, that we are at a microscopic level releasing light, like within the protons. And then think of the aura, the electromagnetic current of energy that surrounds us, the light there. But I want to read this. I've got 10 more minutes, so I'm hoping we'll be able to do this. So here, I'll start here, and I'm hoping I've given you enough of the knowledge where we can understand there was a contest, because you have the revealers of light, their reputation is being known, and then you have these other people who now aren't going through the initiation, say they can't do this, they're not that good, right? So they're having a contest. And this is sort of reminiscent in the Bible. There's even a contest between Baal and with Abraham. You'll speak of the same kind of contest back then. So as Amos, and this is very interesting because they're going to give you the names, the places, they're identifying them. As Amos went out among the sons of Heth, he taught the way of light, but they would not listen to his words. They were like men walking in a circle of darkness, one behind the other, each having his hand on the shoulder of the man in front. Therefore, when the king of the sons of Heth came to buy what Kemen had made, Amos spoke to him about the way of light. And sometimes the king listened. And when they came upon priests of the sons of Heth, Amos said, "What manner of men are these who prance around as though the ground were covered with hot cinders? Before their altars, they are like drunkards who go about shouting and singing. They leap like horses kicking at the wind. What manner of spirit possesses them? Is it a spirit of light or a spirit of darkness? We have seen this often among your people, and it is seen even among the princes and those who sit in judgment. Who can understand the words that pour from their lips? This is not prophecy, but a drug-induced delusion. The people who listen to their words are as misguided as those who resort to a tomb at night and sit within a vault. If a spirit comes, it is a restless one whose words have little value, for they are hollow, empty things. Surely the gods of such as these are demons in disguise, whose powers are a myth, for they are unhearing and unseen things. They are unfeeling idols, clothed in garments of delusion, woven within the tormented thoughts of men. So I want you to, even during these times, how were we supposed to know who truly speaks truth? We have to ask ourselves, because you can't always trust a person who's declaring that they are giving you the truth, right? You have to use your own discernment. Now, the king said, "I have seen your holy men as they sat beneath their trees, and they too acted in a manner strange to the eyes of ordinary men. Where is the difference?" And Amos said, because Amos is the one that's got the light, right? "Our holy men sit in quietude, at peace within themselves. And if their mortal eyes are unseen, it is because their spirits roam freely as birds. There is a test whereby the difference can be made known if you will agree to it." And the king gave his consent. So can you now remember, I was kind of telling you about the pyramid and the cavern of initiation, how close, and then when they came back with the secret of the ages, they just could stand in the light and be in quiet, right? So this is what they're saying. Amos is going into this other land and he's seeing these people proclaiming they know all this, and he's going, this isn't correct. And now they're having a contest. Then a place of absolute darkness was prepared, a place to which light could in no manner be admitted. Into it went 2 priests of the sons of Heth, and 2 of the holy ones from the congregation, and the king and the 2 attendants, and Amos. And remember, Amos is part of the revealers of light, right? With his 2 people. Then, while the king and his attendants watched, they saw the holy ones, these are the revealers of light, the holy ones radiate a light that lit up the whole darkness, so that the faces of all became visible. The priests of the sons of Heth, that's the kings that were not making sense, right? That were full of delusion. They remained in darkness, for their spirits were feeble things without true power. This is the test of true illumination. And so true illumination comes at a great cost. And darkness came upon the earth, and the governors didn't want to undertake these arduous initiations. And then their priests were deluded. But the ones of the revealers of light had always went through all these initiations, had those profound initiations that were grounded in true power, not in baubles, not in money, but in the true power, the secrets of the ages. And you can see there that they were able to emanate light themselves into a darkened chamber. And that's where you will see and call them the revealers of light. So I wanted to have this one prayer and then tell you about the poem of the Necklace of the Days, and we'll close in just a few minutes. But I hopefully got enough of this to have people a little bit interested in learning more about the Colburn Bible. So think about how beautiful this is, and that's only been translated one time. So I can't even imagine how beautiful it would be with the nuances in the original language. This is a prayer of the revealers of light. Let the prayer upon your mission be always fresh in your memories. Great supreme creator, craftsman of earth and of the multiple spheres, grant that our brother may always remain loyal, that he will day by day become ever more worthy, and to dedicate and devote his life to the service of mankind and the completion of its purpose, that he shall forever walk in the light of truth. Grant him the crown of wisdom, the garments of knowledge, and let him be shod with diligence. Grant him the strength to abide by our instruction and discipline, so that with these and by his own efforts, he may awaken within him the true beauties of the Spirit. Add your strength to his weakness, that he may overcome all selfish motives and unworthy desires. Help him in self-taming, so that he may combat the tendency inherent in men towards anger, greed, and self-pity. Strengthen him that he may overthrow the evils of tale-bearing, malice, and jealousy. Grant him the ability to see, with the eye of understanding, the defects and shortcomings of his brothers, and to only emulate their goodness. And isn't exactly that what Jesus asked us to do, is to love our brother, to think pure thoughts? And so here is documentation of a prior time that's asking us to do the same things. And then I'd like to leave you with this beautiful, it's called the Necklace of the Days. And when I read it, I couldn't believe that someone thousands of years ago had the same quest. So if now we know the journey we are to undertake, overcoming vices, acquiring virtues. Think about the quest of knowledge, because that's what we're here for, is to attain that higher knowledge. And this was written thousands of years ago by a spiritual seeker who wanted to know the same things that we did. O great Spirit, I would see the vast face of the earth as you behold it. I would know how the seed is quickened so that it grows into the plant, and how the fowl comes forth from the egg. What is added to the egg to give it the power to reproduce life? I would touch your great body born of the breath from the eternal source, and watch your thoughts creating and molding all things to shape step by step. I would see the links of heaven and earth and rest my hand in each. I would see the thread that binds yesterday, today, and tomorrow, so that all are one and parts of the whole. I would see the appointed place of every living man and understand why. I would see the purpose of every beast and every plant and every tree and everything that flies and crawls. I would know gladness with the children as they play and go singing on the way to their places of instruction. I would watch birth and death and solve their mysteries. I would know the depths of hatred and the heights of love. I would journey the adventurous path of love, hand in hand with another. I would know its secret, its delight, and their shadows, and the secrets of its silences. I would know the beginning and the end and understand what links them. I would see the chain of the years and the necklace of the days. I would know the purpose of it all. Then, knowing all these, I would know you at last, O great Spirit. So I wanted to close with that, see if there's any questions. But can you see that someone that long ago, one of the revealers of light, that was the quest? And is that not what we should be asking, is to become that enlightened, to have all the answers given to us, so that we too can have that utter, beautiful, glorious knowledge of all that is. And that is our quest and our journey here on earth. So was there any little questions that anyone would have before I close here? No? Okay. And so I'll go ahead and I have my my beautiful crystal harp, and I'll go ahead and kind of play that for a little bit. There was another little prayer here. I can't. There was another prayer, but here it is. As I play the crystal harp, which we understand that there's each frequency has beautiful healing to it. And if you can remember even the Bible, and God said, let there be light. Said is a frequency, is a vibration, and the frequencies itself carry some healing aspects. So this crystal harp is keyed to 432, and you'll hear that. And I like to close the session with that, with healing for all and a quest for us all to become revealers of light on our quest of enlightenment. So we'll close our service. Thank you very much for coming. If you feel so called, you can donate on the Cosmic Center of Spiritual Light's website and go there /donate so that they can have the energy and the monies that they need to carry on this beautiful mission that they have. And so you can do that and or in person when you come. So I'm hoping to see you again next month. And we have each week, every Saturday Sabbath, a different minister. So hopefully I'll be seeing you soon. Great God of light, we behold your plan unfolding, whereby all spiritual clouds are dispelled, impurity and error cleansed from the realms of spirit and matter. The age of light and joy is being born. Through your infinite compassion, misguided forces waken unto truth, and negative practices cease, while forces of light unhindered restore the world to peace. All of nature receives your loving influence and finds its rightful place. Peaceful clouds move across brilliant skies, and the fragrance of countless flowers floats upon the air. Abundant harvests glorify the earth, every corner filled with happy voices. Boundaries between countries vanish, and ancient conflicts disappear as if dreams. All people are united, encircled by your light, and guided by your wisdom through service to humanity. All are blessed with health, peace, and prosperity. Great God of light, strengthen us with courage and wisdom to follow your will and realize paradise on earth.